Hey everybody, welcome back to Researching Bourbon. I'm DMC from Louisville, Kentucky. Today I'm going to be going over my top favorite bourbons of 2021. So I've put together this list of my top favorite bourbons for the last couple of years, and in it I list my top 3 bourbons that I've enjoyed drinking that year. You know, the bourbons that I find myself going back to over and over again that should be readily available, so nothing that's crazy to find, nothing that's super hard to find, but things that are available and I really enjoy drinking. So not necessarily things that were released that year. Certainly not necessarily things that were new that year, but some of them might be. All right, and in the last few years, I've always had an honorable mention that I list. So besides my top 3 favorite bourbons, I've been throwing in an honorable mention, which has usually been a rye or an American whiskey. I will continue to do that, but I'm also adding a new category this year, which I'm going to call my top world whiskey of the year, which most likely is going to be a Scotch or an Irish or possibly a Japanese whiskey, that year. So we'll see what I like. Let's get into it. All right, so for this new category this year, my top world whiskey of the year, I'm going with an Irish whiskey. Green Spot. I did a review of several Irish whiskeys back early in the year, and Green Spot was one of my favorites out of that batch. I've really enjoyed this. This should be available around the $50 price point. This comes out of Middleton Distillery in Ireland, and it's got great clean flavors. It's got that classic malted flavor. Occasionally, I have picked up a little bit of apple or orchard fruit on it, but it's definitely got some honey. It's got some, just some good clean flavors in this. Really enjoy it. In that blind tasting I did early in the year, the battle of the Irish whiskeys I did, I was really expecting Redbreast to win that battle or come very high in it, and actually this Green Spot really surprised me and took my top spot. So that's my top world whiskey of the year for 2021. So next up, I'm going to go with my honorable mention of the year, and this year the top honorable mention American whiskey for 2021 is going to be Redwood Empire Lost Monarch. So I did a full review on this several months back. This comes out of California, Redwood Empire Distillery in California. It is a blend, so it does have some Kentucky whiskey in it, some Indiana whiskey in it, and some of their own distillate there in California. So it does on the label say a blend of straight whiskeys. It actually says on the back, it says a blend of straight rye whiskeys and straight bourbon whiskeys. So basically it's an American whiskey, blend of straights, and it could be called a burr rye. It's a blend of both bourbons and ryes. So the 3-year age statement is that's probably their own distillate there out of California, out of the Redwood Empire Distillery in California. Definitely has some older distillate in there from the other distilleries that they blend it with. Amazing taste. Really have liked going back to this. It has all of your classic bourbon taste. I mean, it's got some good rye spice. It's got some good sweetness, and it's just an enjoyable sip. The proof on this is 90 proof. So it's not overpowering. It's just a nice drink if you're looking for something easy to sip on. All right, so we've reached the point where I'm going to give you my top 3 favorite bourbons of 2021. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these are my favorite bourbons of this past year that I found myself going back to over and over again. Just kept reaching for it, kept pouring it, just really enjoyed them. Most of these are not that expensive. They're not hard to find. There aren't any real special releases in the mix or anything. They're just the bourbons that I enjoyed this past year. So coming at number 3 on my list, my number 3 favorite bourbon of 2021 is Maker's Mark, Maker's 46 cask strength. So, this It does say limited edition on the bottle. I don't believe it's really a limited edition anymore. It's become a permanent release in their lineup. It used to be available gift shop only for years. Then they did have a couple of very limited releases that went nationwide. But I believe this is coming out pretty regularly now. I'm going to pour this while I talk about it. But yeah, I'm calling out specifically this Maker's 46 cask strength. Really, any of the Maker's wood finished products could fit this bill. You know, there's the FAE01 and FAE02 were released this year. There's also a lot of private selection, you know, barrel selections that are out there from different stores and distributors, and they all fit the same mold here. They are all, you know, regular Makers that was aged to where it was ready, and then they finished it with extra, you know, 10 extra staves for some period of time. So yeah, I mean, this has a wonderful nose to it. You know, definitely has some caramel on the taste. You know, it's not overpowering. It has got some oak. You know, the spice hits you on the edge of the tongue. You know, Maker's Mark is a wheated bourbon, so there's any rye in it. But you know, you get those classic bourbon notes, and it's not overpowering. I mean, Maker's Mark, their barrel entry proof is 110 proof. So most of these cask strengths they come out with are around 109, 110 proof. The ones I've been seeing for last year have all been in that range. Definitely a good sip, something I've definitely been enjoying this past year, and that's my number 3 favorite bourbon in 2021. All right, so moving on to my number 2 favorite bourbon in 2021, I'm going to go with an MGP product, Smoke Wagon, uncut, unfiltered in particular. They do make Smoke Wagon does have a small batch release, and they also just have a straight bourbon whiskey coming in a lower proof. I think their small batch is 100 proof. Their straight bourbon whiskey is 92 proof. Uncut, unfiltered can vary around. This particular one here is 112.68 proof. So, you know, they get all this from MGP from Lawrenceburg, Indiana. You know, there's lots of MGP barrels, you know, being used out there. Different blends, different releases people are doing. So, really, number 2 on my list is really anything that's MGP. Especially anything barrel proof MGP. I've reviewed a lot of MGP this past year. You know, Belle Meade out of Nelson Greenbrier in Nashville is using MGP. You know, Scout uses some MGP. High West uses MGP. Redwood Empire. You know, MGP themselves have a couple of releases that they do. You know, one's George Remus, the other one's this Remus Repeal. You know, this is their own distillate that they're marketing themselves. You know, this is not cask strength. This is a 100 proof, but it's extra old stuff. So usually, you know, 12 plus years. So you get some older whiskey in this, and a lot of people really love this stuff. So, but I think Smoke Wagon's been doing an excellent job out there getting these bottles. They age them a little longer out there in Nevada. They blend them together, do some really good blending and all that, and the bottles are cool. The whiskey inside is delicious. You know, I mentioned Belle Meade. I've done some reviews with them. You've got Penelope, you've got Old Scout. You know, so all this MGP juice, it's, you know, you really can't go wrong with any of it. It's all great stuff. But yeah, number 2 on my list is going to be any MGP, you know, cask strength or barrel proof releases out there you can find. So, in particular, I'm going with the Smoke Wagon, you know, uncut, unfiltered. All right, so time for me to reveal my top favorite bourbon of 2021. This is actually a bottle that's been on my list in years past. It's the first time I've had a returning bottle. It wasn't on last year's list, but it was a few years ago. But that would be Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. So this whiskey is 12 years old. It is barrel proof, uncut, unfiltered. They release 3 batches a year, an A, B, and C batch, which is like January, May, and September each year. This particular bottle that I have open right now is a C920, which was a 3rd batch in September 2020 when it was first released. This one comes in at 132.8 proof. The proof on these vary. They are batches. They're cask strength, which means no water added. Uncut, unfiltered, like I said, but they are batched. How many barrels go into the batch or how big they are, it's not necessarily disclosed. So the number of bottles available, is going to vary around with the size of the batch. But the proof varies around. Is where I'm going with that. Is the proof has been as low as the low 120s and as high as 140. Usually they're around the 125, 130 proof. But they have had some lower proof ones this year or recently that have been under 125 proof. I haven't bought every single one of these releases when they come out. Like I say, there's 3 of them a year, but I have bought multiple ones of these over the last couple of years. So I've got a little stockpile of them, and I tell you, this is something I really enjoy sipping on. I might call it a Friday night pour. After a hard week at work or something or other, this is what I'm going to reach for a nice sip. I wouldn't drink this every night, but the flavors are wonderful. It's that Heaven Hill, that Rickhouse, that oakiness on the aroma, on the taste. Heavy caramels. Lots of vanilla, lots of baking spices. Cinnamons, sometimes pepper. Definitely my favorite whiskey that I like going to. As soon as I finish a bottle, I just reach for another one and pick it out. I've got bottles in my stores right now from 2018, 2019, 2020. So like I say, as soon as I finish one, I grab another one. I actually haven't bought any bottles this year in 2021, although the C921, which is the 3rd release this year, is out currently, and I do definitely plan on grabbing one of those or trying to grab some of those. So, but there you have it. My list of my top favorite bourbons of 2021. These are the whiskeys and bourbons that I really have enjoyed drinking this year. I keep going back to, just really love the flavors on them. Love sipping on them. And like I say, just found myself going back to again and again over all the other bottles I have available. So, all right, I hope you liked what you saw here. If you did, hit that like button. If you've watched my channel before and you're a returning viewer, thanks for coming back. If you're new, welcome. If you liked what you see, hit subscribe so you can see more content from me in the future. But leave me some comments down below too. Let me know what you think of this list. What you might prefer over some of these, or what you agree with. What you if you have trouble finding these, if you enjoy drinking them, also let me know. I appreciate any feedback. I'd love to hear from you. Remember, everybody, all bourbon is whiskey, but all whiskey is not bourbon, and the best bourbon comes from Kentucky. Cheers. Happy 2022.